I really love the vibrance. I was here last year as well.
Okay.
And it was, so much excitement. Like it was just really needed.
Everybody's quite enthusiastic, so
right.
that's good.
That's right. So thank you for being with us here today. So
Pleasure.
I'm Anne with AFIF 2020, and I'm with Linda Broekhuizen she's the Chief Investment Officer of FMO. All right, and we're just going to do a little bit of interview and get your thoughts on the conference, and then also on financial inclusion, fintech, those topics that have been discussed first and foremost during this conference. So maybe you want to introduce yourself just a little bit?
Sure.
And why you're at the conference.
Yeah, so my name is Linda Broekhuizen. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of FMO, the Dutch Development Bank.
Yes.
FMO is based in The Hague, and we are a public-private sector development bank, majority owned by the Dutch government and owned by largely Dutch banks. And we invest in the private sector in Africa, Asia, and in Latin America. In Asia, we invest in three sectors: the financial sector, renewable energy, and agribusiness. And financial sector is indeed quite important, which is we invest in banks, but we also provide loans. We have private equity, we have venture capital that we invest in, senior loans. We mobilize other institutional investors in the market, and we have also capacity development funds available to support our clients in the market.
That's a very diverse range of things that you're doing.
Right.
But I do understand that you have a very high focus on the SDGs.
Yes, so as a development bank, we focus on sustainable development and sustainable development goals.
Okay.
We have selected three of them which we actually prioritize,
Okay.
which is 8, 10 and 13. 8 is employment and job creation.
Yes.
10 is reducing inequalities, and 13 is climate action.
Okay. So where do you think Asia is in terms of the climate action? Let's just get to that because that's a very hot topic right now, obviously.
Yeah, so Asia is quite a broad continent, of course,
right.
And we need to always look a bit country by country or region by region, but there is, on the one hand, some concerns.
Yes.
There are concerns about changing temperatures,
yes.
but also water, whether it's too much or not enough.
Okay.
If we could look at a country like Bangladesh, which basically is to a large part below sea level. So if the sea level continues to rise, we should look at climate mitigation, but also very much at climate adaptation. What can we do to actually have people who live close to the sea adapt to the changing conditions and increasing the sea level, for instance?
So actually this is a very pressing issue because Venice is already underwater, and Bangkok is probably not much further down the line.
Yeah.
So do these kinds of thoughts play into your initiatives as well?
Very much so. So we committed to actually align our agenda with the 1.5 degree pathway that every country committed to in Paris.
Yes.
And we also assessed what does that mean for our investments in our portfolio.
Okay.
Well, on the one hand, we look at green products for through our clients in the financial sector. Renewable energy is very important.
Okay.
But also, how can we actually look at investments with a positive effect? And one of them is, for instance, forestry. How can we actually reduce deforestation and look at reforestation or agroforestry to actually make sure that we can also have a positive net effect on the climate.
Right, because if Asia is going to be hit hard, you for sure have a lot of work to do here.
We do, and the ambitions are high.
Right, so have you previously to this been very involved in Asia? Or to what extent?
Asia has always been an important part of our portfolio.
Okay.
We are very active in India, but also in Cambodia, in Laos, in Bangladesh, as I mentioned, and Vietnam. So it's quite an important region for us. It's the second largest region after Africa, which is the largest part of our portfolio.
Right.
At the same time, of course, the population in Asia is big and growing, and we see a lot of opportunities to see how can we support actually developing a middle class in many of the countries, and how can we support the lowest income countries to improve their economies and also to improve the quality of life for the people living in there.
So can you just maybe mention What are some concrete initiatives towards employment that you've supported or investments that you've made that would create jobs in these countries?
Yeah, so we really strongly believe in the financial sector playing a big role in creating small and medium-sized enterprises. And those are actually fueling employment and job creation very much. So that starts with micro enterprises. So we also work with microfinance companies. And how can we help those individual entrepreneurs actually grow their own business, and in the end even growing by hiring new people and supporting actually employment growth.
Right.
We don't only look at the number of people employed, but also at the quality of employment, because it's also about the quality of the job and the working conditions and labor conditions that people have. Take, for example, an energy project where there is a lot of construction going on. We also look very much at what is the labor quality, and how can we make sure that health and safety is guaranteed for the people who work in construction, for instance.
Right. Is there one project maybe that's first and foremost in your mind at the moment, or that just comes to mind in any Asian countries?
Well, I was in Nepal last November, and there a lot of hydropower projects are being developed, which is very important to generate more green energy. Nepal has a lot of potential to actually export to India, to China, where there's a shortage of green energy. We see at the same time that these bigger projects closely to the Himalaya, where there's a lot of power to generate hydropower energy. At the same time, we need to look very much at how are these projects being built. We need to look at biodiversity. What is the impact on biodiversity, on local communities, and how can we make sure construction is safe, because people work under quite different conditions. At the same time, Nepal has a huge potential to really grow this sector very much. They need a lot of foreign direct investment, and we want to see how we can help the Nepalese country to actually grow and their economy, but also prepare the country for more foreign direct investments.
So you could say it's a very conscious diversion of funds to places that could benefit and end up impacting other locations as well.
Certainly.
Right.
Yes.
So, taking stock of the state of financial markets in Asia, how ready do you think they are to deliver on different asset classes, just as a whole?
Well, I think there is a lot of opportunity and potential for the green bond market to grow. Sustainable markets, social bonds, sustainable bonds. We think that there is a lot of opportunity. We have done green bonds in India, for instance. But we see a difference in how capital markets are developing from that perspective per country, and how regulation is supporting that or not supporting that. So we also believe that it's very important that there's more awareness on the business case of investing in green assets. And we also strongly believe that in the long term, there will be fossil fuel assets will be much more what we call stranded assets. And it will, for the long term, not be financially sustainable to invest in coal, for instance. Or in heavy fuel oil projects because of the pollution. And if we would have like a tax on CO2, or if we would actually get more risky assets, then the risk-return profile will materially change in favor of green assets.
And so you're saying that specifically for Asia? Or just global?
For Asia, it's global. At the same time, in Asia, the population growth is still strong, because we see, of course, China and India with populations more than 1 billion, and there's still population growth in many other countries, and that puts pressure on the combination of biodiversity, of course, agriculture, growing more foods to actually feed the population, and to support economic growth for the growing population. It's very important to look at it in a balanced approach and to see how this can be done sustainably, looking at the longer term of economic development.
Before it's too late, because a lot of players are moving into this space now.
Yeah, and that is important.
It's a gold rush, so to speak.
One of the opportunities as well to keep in mind is to not only look at short-term returns, but look at long-term returns. That is both financial return, but also what we call impact return.
Okay.
And impact return can be social aspects, it can be green aspects of the financing. They are not all monetized yet, but if we would monetize them, you would have a whole different perspective on risk and return.
Okay. So that could be a shifting of risk profiles.
Right.
A positive shift.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what strategic partnerships and roles are needed to accelerate capital flows, do you think, in the public and private sectors?
Yeah, so in the public side we see a lot of blended finance coming up, and blended finance is used to actually provide more donor-related funds.
Okay.
To actually focus on innovation and create new assets, because in many cases we need innovation, we need new technologies to see what we can develop to create also the investments of the future, which are green, which should take social components into account, as well as economic development.
Okay.
On the other side, we also see that there's to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have seen today that also in Asia a lot needs to be done, because we only have 10 years left until 2030 to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, and we are not on track. So we need to accelerate, and we also need to accelerate by attracting more institutional investors to Asia. And that is part of the role that we play as FMO, because we want to mobilize institutional investors to invest in sustainable projects in Asia as well. Okay,
so that would be part of why you're at the forum today.
Yes, and we really like that in this conference there's a lot of investors from abroad, but also a lot of financial institutions that can play a catalyzing role in accelerating the development that is needed. And it's not only providing the finance itself, but it's also actually what is the impact of the financing and how can we accelerate a positive impact in there. And that's what we strongly believe needs partnerships. That is Sustainable Development Goal number 17, and partnerships are very crucial to find the synergies in cooperating with public sector, private sector, and also civil society to actually find those projects and find cooperation in the projects to scale up innovation and development.
So what you're saying is that this forum actually plays a very direct role in fostering the Sustainable Development Goal number 17, the partnerships, right?
Certainly. We saw this morning when the audience was asked the question, what do you want to take out of this conference, is that the biggest one mentioned was networking. Yes. And we've seen a lot of networking here today. Yes.
We have.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. It's a great interview, and yes, we hope to see you back next year at the forum again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you
very
Linda.
much. Thank you.